Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Mr. Kamal Maharaj, Dr. Lliane Loots, Ms. Paula Martini, Mr. Sipiwayam Chunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests and online viewers. Namaskar and welcome to episode 2 of Yogcharcha. Yogcharcha is an online discussion on yoga, a series of interactions with yoga experts. Indeed, today in our midst, we have yoga expert Dr. Lliane Loots, who will be interacting with the very beautiful Miss Paula Martini. Dr. Lliane Loots is a lecturer at UKZN. To commence today's program, I would like to introduce Mr. Kamal Maharaj, the CEO of Vishwa Shakti, and Mr. Maharaj is also an educator in Durban, South Africa. This program is in association with the Vishwa Shakti Academy of South Africa. So please welcome Mr. Kamal Maharaj for his introductory remarks today on Yogcharcha episode 2.
I think firstly, namaskar to everyone. And it's really great to be part of the initiative of the Yogcharcha series and to be with such really awesome people who are involved in yoga, not just philosophizing about yoga, but really practically involved. And you know what yoga has really done for them. I think the series is going to be something that is going to set a trend the world over. That we need to now start meeting people who actually do yoga. You know, for too long, people were saying, I come from this cultural background where yoga is a big thing, but they are not practicing yoga. They're not even involved in yoga. They don't know the journey. They're not even traveling the path of yoga. And I think now when we're starting to bring people from the world together and we're starting to talk yoga, we're going to walk this talk. I think that is the difference with this series. I want to state, and I know our speakers have been mentioning this, that yoga is not a religion. It's actually beyond religion. And if we look at the ancient teachers of Bharat, of India, the gurus were beyond religion. Actually, religion is a foreign concept to the ancient gurus. They practiced the system called dharma, which is something that sustains and is absolutely evolving all the time, just like yoga. The very fact that yoga gives you flexibility, not just in the body, but also in the mind, itself shows that religion cannot fit into this pocket because it will automatically you want to explode and you want to move out and you want to explore. But if religion confines you, then because they say it's easier to define a religion because it sets parameters and you must walk in that. If you try to come out of it, then you are regarded as a non-believer and you're pushed out, you're excommunicated. Yoga allows you to grow, to expand. And I think it is the call of the 21st century. The world wants to come together. And fortunately or unfortunately, Corona has made us work together. Has called us and said, listen, world, it's too much you have been independent. You need to start to work. And that is what yoga is about. Bringing unity, firstly within the self, and then that is expressed externally. And we start to realize that the world is one family. You know, what's amazing about yoga, a system that has been developed and it is placed before you and it said, right now, take this and make it work for you. There is no such thing as it has to be like what it used to be. Once you start developing the yoga asanas within yourself, training, practicing, automatically you start growing and you find that you are expanding those asanas and you start feeling part of the program, because what the guru has taught you to bend down maybe and touch your toes, but as you start expressing that little yoga asana, you start finding that you do more. And that is what dharma is supposed to do. That is what yoga is supposed to do. Its intention is to expand you, to make you grow. Now, this is what human beings want. And one of the things, the fear that is causing civilizations to distrust each other, is the fear that they will not be allowed to grow. They themselves have confined themselves in some system, and they thinking that the outside world is not allowing them to grow. But they have confined themselves on their own, with their own choices. But when you meet yoga, you automatically start to want to expand. You automatically grow out of the cocoon that you have been building around yourself, the walls, the barriers. So, what we need to change, we need to change the way we approach our life. And once we open the mind, and this is a fear sometimes, that if I open my mind, I may lose myself. Actually, we're losing ourselves because we're confining ourselves. But when we open our mind, we are going to see the world, we're going to see the universe. The trees and the flowers and the animals and the other people, the different cultures, we're going to begin to recognize them. We're going to learn to appreciate them. We're going to be able to learn from the universe. But that can only happen the moment I start to realize that I need to become the change I want to see in the world, like Gandhi had said. It's an important idea that Krishna has mentioned in his Gita. And that is, he even mentioned this to Arjuna. He said, Abhyasa Yoga. I think that's a key word. Abhyasa Yoga means practice. We all want to engage the world without actually traveling the path, without traveling the journey. We all want to see things about everything, whether it's spirituality, whether it is even the confines of religion or language or anything that defines our world. We all want to talk about it, but we all lack experience and practice. And only the experienced mind and the person who has traveled the journey can actually say what the journey is about, because they have actually traveled the path. So I think yoga for the 21st century, and I'm just adding one, 21st century and beyond, yoga is a journey that starts with at least taking the first step, placing it on the floor and starting to make the spine flexible, starting to energize the body, starting to make yourself feel young again. Because as our body is aging, our mind is getting tired and we are aging with it. And we reach a stage where we can't grow anymore. And we start to blame the universe, we blame the world, we even blame God. That's how we end up, becoming a bundle of unhappiness. And when we become the bundle of unhappiness, and if we find ourselves in a position of authority, we create difficulties in the world. being a leader. Can you imagine an unhappy leader? He creates an unhappy world. So therefore, yoga is the call of the time. It is the need of the hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamal Maharaj, for those remarks today. Yes, indeed, in our midst today we have the very dynamic yoga expert, lecturer at UKZN, and that is Dr. Lliane Loots. And Dr. Lliane Loots is going to be interacting with the very beautiful Miss Paula Martini, who is also a yoga practitioner in KZN. Welcome, Miss Paula Martini and Dr. Lliane Loots, for your interaction today on Yogcharcha episode 2.
Hi, good day. So lovely to meet you, Dr. Lewis.
So lovely to meet you, Paula. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Yogi, for inviting me again and to be with everyone. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. I think it's such a lovely platform that we're creating here. So my first question to you this afternoon is, how do you understand or define yoga?
So, I mean, for me, the word yoga is often, I think in the West, we use the word slightly incorrectly, because yoga is actually the esoteric or higher path in Hinduism, and it's a deeply spiritual path. And I think often what we refer to in the West as the kind of physical exercises is really hatha. And it's one of the many types of yoga, and for me, the understanding of, how we name things becomes quite significant in a way, because we also understand that our practices of hatha are part of our journey as aspirant yogis, as people doing sadhana, and of us trying to, find our way in a kind of spiritual landscape. And of course, hatha yoga develops, if one goes back to Patanjali Yoga Sutras, although I'm sure that yoga has a much, longer history than that. For me, it's the idea of what Patanjali said, is that we practice hatha to ready ourselves actually for meditation and for that deeper inward contemplation.
Wonderful. And how did you get connected with yoga?
So my connection to yoga is a strange one, and I think like many things in life, hardship brings you to the path that you need to be on. So in my late 30s, or my early 30s actually, from years and years of dancing, and particularly dancing on bad surfaces, I developed a really profound back injury. My disc started degenerating in the lumbar spine, and I tried everything, and somebody said to me, try yoga, try hatha yoga. And I have to be honest, I always tell the story with a little bit of embarrassment, but when I went to my first hatha class, I became quite resentful in the class, because I was so used to moving and doing a lot of outward movement in the dance class, and I landed up in an Iyengar hatha yoga class, and at that particular class, the teacher had us hold postures for long periods of time, and I remember getting all grumpy and going, "This is ridiculous. This can't be helpful." And I sort of walked out the class, feeling like, well, okay, I tried it. It wasn't for me. And I suddenly realized walking home that I had no pain in my back, that the back, for that moment, that instant opening of the lower lumbar spine, the pain came back. And, it was the realization that hatha is not an instant fix. It's a long journey. But I suddenly realized that resistance to this practice was exactly the reason that I needed to do it. And I made a commitment to myself and to my well-being to do yoga. And I can honestly say now that hatha yoga is the love of my life. Without it, I don't think I would be here. It is the practice that has helped me manage my life, and certainly, living with, as a person who's also getting older, as a dancer who's aging, the kind of injuries and the way of kind of rehabilitating the body. So that's how I started in hatha yoga, and because it was Iyengar, it started my connection to Iyengar yoga. I've tried many, I've had other teachers as well, but for me, Iyengar always called to me because of his specificity around correct posture. And I think as a dancer and someone with a mindfulness around careful practice sadhana, I think, for me, it felt I had a synergy with them. I was very lucky to go to Pune and learn from him obviously before he passed. So it's been a great journey.
What a privilege, absolute privilege.
Yeah.
And how do you feel? Do you feel any different in your own life due to the practice of yoga? How has it changed your life?
Of course, it's changed my life. I mean, for me, you know, Hatha Yoga was the outward practice of Hatha was the journey to a much deeper inward spiritual path, that it opened the doors to the higher esoteric path around Hinduism. I started to read, I started to engage teaching. I made a few pilgrimages or journeys to India to try and deepen my quest for what I began to understand as, you know, in my early 30s, I began to understand that I'd found some deep truth about the world. And, you know, for me, Hatha was that way into a much larger journey about spirituality.
Wow. And do you have any specific style? You've spoken obviously quite a bit about Hatha, but the specific style or school of yoga, and can you explain to our viewers and audience?
Sure. So, I mean, you know, especially as, you know, kind of people living, I mean, we're not West, we're South because we're South Africa, but, you know, the Western appropriation or journey into Hatha Yoga has kind of found ways to name and box things. So, you know, you have people talking about vinyasa, which is a kind of fire flow energy, and you have Kundalini, which is a much more sound orientated practice. You have yin yoga, which is a much more sedate, contemplative yoga. But actually, it's all Hatha. It's all Hatha, and it all comes from those set sacred postures that, you know, were set up in the 5th century BC, you know, by Patanjali and the rest. So, I mean, for me, as I mentioned earlier, my roots lie in the teachings of BKS Iyengar, who, you know, was very, you know, was kind of seminal in bringing yoga from India to the rest of the world and kind of making it available as a practice to people who are not born Indian. But for me, you know, I've also, you know, there's also the story always, of course, that you have to kill the guru, and the idea that however much I respect and, you know, acknowledge the profound influence that Iyengar's had, he was also a particularly harsh disciplinarian of a teacher, which I didn't mind because I come from a dance background and it's kind of the background you come from. But it's also, you know, as a feminist, there's always trying to find other ways to rethink about notions of who's the guru and why are the gurus always men. So there's also those kinds of discussions. So there's also been a journey to, you know, engaging other teachers and the most beautiful teachers in Durban. I work alongside Sizwe and Nomzamo at the Toolbox, and, you know, just kind of learning from them and picking up on other styles. But certainly I've been influenced by the teaching and the specificities of BKS Iyengar. So, I mean, it's all Hatha, but it's really, you know, how the teacher chooses to work with it in a way.
Yes, and what you relate to, I think.
Absolutely.
Yes. And do you feel that yoga is not only a physical exercise or a scheduled activity, but is an integrated approach and understanding to live a life in its entirety?
Well, I mean, it's such a beautiful question. I always think about, you know, Iyengar used to, when we were struggling with a posture, or when he would give you something impossible to do, he would always turn around and say, you know, yoga is not about the body. There is no body in Hatha Yoga. It is just the mind. And you know, I've spent years of my life still contemplating that, because when you're in practice and you're sweating and you're trying very hard to get yourself into all the postures, I always have that voice of Iyengar in my head saying, this is not about the body. That deep understanding that as we do Hatha practice, it becomes a journey to face, you know, your demons, a little bit like, you know, like I suppose Krishna and Arjuna, when you look out on the battlefields, we're always at war with our lower natures in a way. And I feel like Hatha Yoga, for me, that practice is about that journey of fighting yourself. I mean, Iyengar used to always say, when you do practice, find the postures that are most difficult and the ones that you dislike. And those are the postures you have to do. Because the idea of confronting, you know, ourselves and what is difficult. So, of course, Hatha Yoga is a deeply physical practice, and it is about fitness and well-being, and it's about purification and cleansing. But it is the gateway to a deeper sense of self if you are open to that. And for me, that is what it is.
Wonderful. And do you feel that yoga represents universal energy or universal love and compassion?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the, you know, what Hatha Yoga teaches us is the true nature of Atman, that there is no you and I, that we are all connected, that if we begin to understand the deep, deep understanding of connection, that we cannot have wars, we cannot have discord, because the true nature of Atman is that we are not separate from one another. And I mean, I know, Paula, you would have felt this as well when you teach and when you do Hatha, that there is in the practice room with the people that you are working with, at some point in the practice, everyone just for a moment relinquishes the ego and we surrender ourselves to a deeper practice. And sometimes it comes because we are so hot and so sweaty and so overtired, or sometimes it just happens because we find a silence or a stillness. But for me, definitely Hatha Yoga is one of the gateways to understanding this beautiful universal consciousness, and that journey towards understanding that we are part of something, you know, that the ego is our worst enemy, and that when we can find that connectedness to something greater than ourselves, we are doing true Hatha practice.
Lovely. Absolutely. I actually couldn't agree with you more. I think it's yeah, perfect words. So on that note, thank you so much. Very, very profound answers and things that I think a lot of us can reflect on and yeah, think about and yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lliane Loots and Ms. Paula Martini, for that very beautiful interaction on yoga. Next, we will be having a demonstration on a few yoga asanas by Dr. Lliane Loots.
Namaste. Greetings to everybody. It's my absolute honor to be invited to come and share some postures or asanas with you today. I've decided to not do big, bold, daring postures, but to rather focus on 4 very gentle, very simple postures that we can all do at home, taking up Mr. Maharaj's instruction to kind of get the spine a little bit more mobile. So the postures I'm going to do today are all seated, which you're going to see that I'm seated. You can do them sitting on the floor as I'm going to be doing them, or you could also do them actually sitting in a chair. And the whole point of these is I'm hoping that they will open the spine a little bit, get you to feel a little bit better about yourselves, and hopefully allow you to begin a beautiful love affair with Hatha. I'm sitting today at the beautiful Toolbox Studio, which is a yoga studio in which I teach, and I'm very happy to be here with you. So let's start by crossing the legs. The crossed legs is what we call easy sage posture. It's a very comfortable posture. And of course we start with the hands in the Anjula Mudra, with the thumb pushing into the sternum and just the head slightly tipped forward, feeling the extension in the back of the neck. And you may close your eyes for just a moment as you, through your hands, feel the heart. And of course in Hatha Yoga, the most important thing is the breath. So we just softly bring ourselves into that beautiful rhythm of the in-breath and the out-breath. We call it the Ujjayi breath. In Hatha, we breathe in through the nose and softly out through the nose. It's a beautiful breath. It extends the lungs. It slows us down, but we're breathing to the full capacity. So from here, we're going to do our first easy seated posture, which is called Parivrata Sukhasana. And as I said earlier, nice, beautiful open legs. We're going to take that left hand, place it on the right knee. The right hand is going to go behind us, sort of in line with your tailbone. And because my arms are kind of normal, they're not long arms, I'm not going to do flat hands, I'm going to do fingers. So the posture goes, breathing in, we lift up, and on the out breath, we twist, pushing ourselves to look all behind ourselves, looking into that right shoulder. So you've got that beautiful sense of a twist and of opening. It's best to do this posture for a good 4 or 5 breaths. We release, we swap, same thing, hands to the side, breathing in, and on the out breath, twisting to look all the way behind you. I'm going to do these a little bit quickly because I know that we don't have much time, but it's best to do each posture for a good 6 or 7 of those wonderful Ujjayi breaths. So after this twist, the next thing that I would like you to do is to unlock your legs, give them a little bit of a shake. We're going to bring the left leg behind us and the right on top. So both feet touching the yoga mat, the knees trying to get into alignment. This is called seated Gurudusan or seated eagle. Bringing the arms out to the side, the left arm comes underneath, right on top, fingers to palm. And as you breathe in, you lift up in the spine, and on the out breath, gently raise the elbows. You're going to find the most wonderful stretch happening in the upper part of the back. This is also lovely for people who've been sitting all day and you want to just stretch out and feel the body opening. If you're feeling very brave and courageous in this posture, you can keep raising the elbows, but you'll notice that the back will tell you when you've done enough. And again, I'd like you to do this for 4 or 5 breaths. You're going to notice as well that the glutes, your back muscles, are also working, which is really lovely. And of course, very importantly, we want to change sides. So changing sides, again, similarly, both feet touching the mat, bringing the arms up, right arm underneath, left, right on top, and slowly start with the elbows in, and on the out breath, gently begin to raise up. And again, we hold for 6 or 7 breaths, feeling that tension. In this posture, there's a little bit of tension that builds in the shoulders. So when you release the posture, it feels very beautiful. And again, hold the posture for a good 6 or 7 breaths. Releasing the legs, again, always give the legs a bit of a shake. And because of that internal twist, I'd like you to flex the feet. We're going to do a posture called seated Vrikshasana, seated tree. These are versions standing up, but of course today we're working on the floor. So we're going to bring the palms up, connect hands, lock thumbs, bring your biceps next to the ears, and drop your shoulders, and rise up. The eyes are closed, or you can fix your gaze into the horizon line, whatever's more comfortable for you. If you're very comfortable in the posture, I always say bring the arms back slightly, so you feel your shoulder blades rotating as you do it. Keep flexing the feet, because the feet are your foundation. And as I said, in the Iyengar system, he's very precise about where the feet should be and how they should go. So keep reaching. This posture also heats you up a little bit, so it gets you nice and warm. Again, 5 or 6 really, really beautiful breaths as you do this. And gently bringing the arms down, loose neck and head. Just softly let that go. Beautiful. The last posture I'd like to do with you today is one of my favorite. It's called seated Baddha Konasana, seated wide angle posture. And it's very nice for the hips. So you bring the feet together, palms of the feet facing, you connect fingers, you hold underneath the toes. Don't close the thumb over the big toe. You want to keep the thumbs open. So breathing in, you're going to rise up. And on the out breath, you're going to lean slightly forward, just softening the elbows. And on this posture, you're going to look into this little gap in front of the feet. And this is a beautiful posture because in most hatha postures, we're taught to grip or to hold. And in this posture, you're asked to let go. So as you do this posture, allow the thighs just to soften. And as the thighs soften, you'll feel the knees falling. So this is a posture which teaches us not to grip, but to let go. And again, you can close the eyes. It doesn't stress the heart, this posture. It's a very simple posture. Just softly feel that breath going. And of course, if you're not mindful, the legs will take over. So you want the thighs to let go so that the hips take over. That beautiful, the psoas muscle or the hip flexors are doing the work. And especially because over COVID, many of us have been sitting too much. This is a really wonderful posture that brings some mobility back to the hips. And again, just 4 or 5 breaths as you do it. As you release it, you come into a little bit of a C curve and you're going to just gently help those legs up, sending them out in front of you once more, those beautiful flexed feet. And just to end our little session today, we're going to do a forward fold. So breathing in, bring the arms up. Again, reaching. As you exhale, lift in the lower spine and come just 15 degrees. You want to loosen the neck and head. You want to feel that you're bending from the back of the spine rather than rounding the back. Doesn't matter how low you go, but rather that you have a long spine. If you are capable of a little bit more, you can do another 15 degrees. This is up to you. Again, loosen the head. Full forward bend, let the hands rest against the knees. And there's many options here. You can hold the calf muscles, you can hold the ankles, or if you can hold under the heels. We breathe in to lift up, and as you exhale, let the elbows drop as you slowly fold forward, trying to get your forehead to reach the shins. You're going to feel this wonderful rounding and lengthening in the spine. And again, like all postures, hold it for a good 4 or 5 breaths. And again, doesn't matter where you're holding, work with your own body, but just feel this beautiful forward fold. To come out of the posture, reach the arms ahead of you and slowly rise up. Feels lovely. The torso opens and a light touch. Loosen the neck and head. And to end our practice, our very short, very beautiful practice, just bring the legs back to easy sage. Bring the hands back into the Anjula Mudra. Just close the eyes with your hands connected to your heart and your thoughts remaining on the breath as we connect Ajna to Pranayama. So we feel our connectedness to one another and of course to all things. And we acknowledge the divine spirit that flows through all of us. And in Hatha Yoga, the seeking always for our higher selves. Om Tat Sat and Hari Om. Thank you for letting me share my practice with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Loots, for those demonstration of the yoga asanas. Indeed, I hope to try it out, and I hope our audience definitely does try it out. With that said, we've come to the conclusion of episode 2 of Yogcharcha. I'd like to introduce Mr. Sipiwe Mchunu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this afternoon's vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Greetings to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, I am so delighted today to deliver a vote of thanks on today's second episode of the program Yogcharcha, meaning discussions on yoga. Allow me to thank the following online guests who took part on today's program. Sri Kamal Maharaj, an educator and the founder, CEO of Vishwa Shakti, for the wonderful remarks that he gave on yoga. Thank you very much, sir. Secondly, I'd like to thank Dr. Lliane Loots, yoga teacher and a lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal School of Art, and also Ms. Paula Martini, a yoga practitioner, for the wonderful interaction that they have about the yoga. So I was also touched. I think I have to try and learn yoga now. Yoga is for life, so I'll try and join it. Lastly, I'd like to thank also Dr. Lliane Loots for a wonderful yoga asanas that she demonstrated today. I also picked up 1 or 2 that I will try at home alone first, then I will teach my family. So to Kamal ji, Lliane ji, and Paula ji, Danyavat, thank you very much to all of you for what you have done this evening. To Dr. Chaichana Prakash Yogi, Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India, Sristi Harinarayan, Piyush Khanderwal, thank you very much for taking part on today's program. To all our online viewers who took part on today's program, we'd like to say Danyabat for the part that you took this evening. Please be advised to visit our Facebook page so that you will be updated about all cultural activities organized by Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban. To all of you, have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.